MOUNJARO versus Ozempic semaglutide, the ultimate showdown, particularly if you are switching medications. I am Elizabeth, Countess of Shopping. I've lost over 108 pounds the last 2.5 years. And on today's episode, I'm super, super stoked to do a deep dive and talk a little bit about this because a viewer, we're going to call her T, she's one of our besties here, messaged me this information that she was switching from MOUNJARO to Ozempic, but she was using the compound. And so I wanted to talk about this because I saw a few things in her message that I thought would help other people. So I'm going to keep her name anonymous and just protect her and my conversation. But I thought it was really important learning lesson for hopefully a lot of people. If you're debating if whether to start Tirzepatide or semaglutide, or if your insurance is making you go from Tirzepatide, MOUNJARO, to switch over to Ozempic, semaglutide, for our type 2 diabetes brothers and sisters. But we can lump in our friends on obesity management here too. You can get lumped into this conversation as well, because I think it's a really important one. So let me read her comments. And then I'm going to go through, I've got 5 action items to help with this ultimate showdown that may be beneficial for you. And of course, none of this is medical advice. This is simply my experience, strength, and hope of going from morbidly obese to now somebody who actively lifts. I ride horses. Like, my life is fully changed. Like, I could not do that when I weighed over 300 pounds. My knees still do snap, crackle, pop, but I'm substantially stronger in that lifting. So let's dive in. She wrote and says, I do HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, and MOUNJARO, and have been doing so for the last 2 years and 9 months. I'm not losing anything, and oftentimes I'm up a couple of pounds. I quit, it keeps going, it says, any benefit for lowering the dose and going back up? Now, people ask me this all the time. There's more to this, and I'm going to loop back over to it. There's more to this about quitting, going to a lower dose, stopping the medication and restarting, of that it can restart. For me, and again, I am not medical, I will always punch you to your healthcare provider. This video is the purpose and intention is to help punt the conversation for you to talk to your healthcare provider, because I am not one. I don't pretend to play one on the internet. Simply my own experience, strength, and hope of what I see. And for me, what makes the best sense, and hopefully may help encourage you with this conversation with your healthcare provider. So she's saying in here, and had asked me, and I get asked this at least once a day, and in my free encouragement group on countessofshopping.com/group, it's not on Facebook anymore. People talk about this too. And I always have the same response, which is, I choose not to stop this medication. I will probably be on the rest of my life pending the information I have right now. The caveat is with the knowledge I know right now, because knowledge changes. That's why we have opposable thumbs, because of evolution, like stuff changes. But with the information I have at this current point, yeah, I'm going to be on it the rest of my life, probably some form of GLP-1 medication. For me, I don't understand, and I know many of you have explained to me your standpoint of stopping medication or lowering medication and then coming back and rebounding. I am very excited to see more data and more scientific evidence on that, because the data does tell us 70% of people gain the weight back when they stop taking this drug. And so for me, I'm like, our bodies aren't recalibrating. 30% of people are having success of keeping that weight off, but in terms of continuing to lose weight, not only just keep it off, but continuing to lose, to me, I interpret that data as 70% of people gain the weight back. That sounds hard to me. Like, honey, I want the path of least resistance. That's the most helpful path. Let me be clear, obviously, like the paths of least resistance that make that health-wise, that I'm not endangering my health and things like that. But it doesn't make sense to me if 70% of people gain the weight back. Why is that? I don't and I know many of you are going to comment in the comments. I can already see it now. I'm opening myself up to get a ton of comments. So please be respectful with your comments, 1, and 2, cite your sources for me. If you put the link down in YouTube, it probably is going to block it, the filters that they have on YouTube. But you can say, hey, I found it in X, like the title of it and the author and things like that, and I can go search it. If there is a reputable source, but the reputable sources are saying 70% of people gain the weight back. And the restarting of this or letting your body like the data just doesn't show, from the data that I am interpreting from a non-medical standpoint, from somebody who does not have a medical degree. So that's the first part. Then the second part says that for this person's doctor, the doctor let me do the compound for semaglutide, which is 1 milligram for a month. And then she said, I only lasted 2 weeks I was eating everything in sight, so I'm back on MOUNJARO 15 milligrams. And to give context, MOUNJARO is, the highest dose is 15 milligrams. To give context on semaglutide or Ozempic for our type 2 diabetes brothers and sisters for obesity management, it's Wegovy. 1 milligram is the second highest dose. The highest dose is, I think off the top of my head, 2.4 milligrams. It's not the highest dose. There's doses higher. There's another dose higher than that. So that would be akin for our MOUNJARO brothers and sisters, but it's not akin, but this is the first of, follow me along the rabbit hole. It's not akin because it basically would be like the second highest dose of MOUNJARO, 12.5 milligrams. And so that, okay, let's keep going. I was eating everything in sight. She says, it's so frustrating. I don't weigh in every day or every week, and I can be back up 5 to 6 pounds within a month. I know I should exercise, and so maybe that's my problem. So, and then she goes on to say, because I had said a couple of things. I basically was saying I preferred the Tirzepatide, the MOUNJARO. I'm just pushing for more water and protein, and see if I can drop more weight. So, she talks in there also about the Nutrafol supplement, and that has not been my experience, so I'm not going to include that in here as well. There's further, just to give context with everything. So number one, MOUNJARO in type 2 diabetics, so MOUNJARO and Ozempic, for people with type 2 diabetes, if you're comparing it to obesity management, the weight loss is slower. The weight loss is slower. If you compared, and this is not, again, an equal comparison, but for somebody on 1 milligram of Wegovy or Ozempic, you lose, it was 12.6 pounds for the study that was done. Let me see if I can pull my study. Versus the highest dose of, or I could say this, if it was the third highest dose, it goes MOUNJARO 10 milligrams, 12.5 milligrams, 15 milligrams. At the 10 milligram mark, it was 12.2 pounds to 23.6 pounds. So to give context on that, the bottom line is people who are type 2 diabetics are slower losers. It's not just you as a type 2 diabetic. It's not you. And so I want you to take your power back on that. It is not you. The data across the board is saying that type 2 diabetics versus non-type 2 diabetics lose weight slower. And it's subsequently, I don't like to put this out in the ether that it's harder, but it is going to present some challenges of it taking a little bit longer, of figuring out, like, your, who is that Princess and the Pea who slept in different beds? Trying different beds to sleep in to see what works best for you with that. And so straight out the gate, MOUNJARO, Tirzepatide, for type 2 diabetics, it's going to take longer than someone who's on, like, Zepbound, for example, for obesity weight management, or Wegovy. So that's one, is type 2 diabetics take longer. But the second part of this major piece, like, these are two major pieces that I absolutely feel compelled to tell you, and, like, the entire reason I wanted to do this video is because it jacks with people's mind, particularly if you come from a morbid obesity background or an obesity background or an overweight background. There's already guilt, shame, condemnation, and piled on a bunch of poo-poo, and piling it on even more of, like, oh, I'm not losing weight, everyone else is, or everyone else is having success and I'm not, is not good for our mindsets. So this is why I want to crush and, like, dispel these myths with it, and give you the facts. The second fact is Tirzepatide. So first, we know type 2 diabetics, it's slower for the weight loss. Number two, when you compare MOUNJARO versus semaglutide on average from this particular study, and I'm going to pull up a little bit more on that, the mean weight loss average was negative 7.3%, whereas with Tirzepatide, it was, or with the mean weight loss was a negative 11.4%. So to give some context on that, like, Tirzepatide wins hands down. Like, it's been proven over and over and over. Tirzepatide, let me get my muscle going on there. See, I was gonna say, there's muscle there. That looks like there's not muscle. There is muscle, honey, in their streets. When you're comparing Tirzepatide versus semaglutide, Tirzepatide is going to win hands down in a head-to-head combat in terms of weight loss. And so keeping that in mind. So when I hear from this viewer, I got more stuff to talk about, but when I hear from this viewer saying in the comments that she's not losing weight, and that her doctor switched her over to semaglutide, but semaglutide 1 milligram and not the 2.4 milligram. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know why that switch was not made to the highest dose of that. I don't know. I don't know. But she then says, it was so frustrating. I came back up 5 to 6 pounds within a month, and she was eating everything in sight. Yeah, the data says that. Like, beware, 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 beware. Tirzepatide is you're going to lose more weight with Zepbound, MOUNJARO, Tirzepatide versus data-wise, semaglutide, Wegovy, Ozempic. However, I've got so much because I know so many people are switching because of their health insurances. So first out of the gate, that's one of the things to talk about. However, I think making matching dose to dose, and I don't know the medical reason. I'm sure there is one, and so I'm putting that out there too. Again, I'm not a healthcare provider, but at least being on the same like highest dose, because she was not, and so perhaps that may have helped. But I'm sure it's probably to see about side effects. Just starting probably would have increased on that. If somebody, and I see this a lot of people who are on like MOUNJARO 7.5 milligrams or Tirzepatide equivalent, like for the compound equivalent 7.5 milligrams, there's more room to go if you switch over to say semaglutide in terms of you're not at the highest dose of MOUNJARO or Tirzepatide, but you would have room on semaglutide if you are forced to switch over because of your health insurance. It gives you more of a runway to increase your dose. But this is the key caveat, is time. And I get it from somebody. I get it more than anybody else gets it because I've lived it. Like, this has been my life of like, I don't want to continue having the burden and pain and guilt and shame in combination. I want that to go away. I would not wish that on my worst enemy of being overweight, obese, or morbidly obese. Been there, done that, literally got the t-shirt. And I like the new t-shirts that I'm in, my size medium t-shirts versus my size 2XL or X, or X, 2X or 3X shirts. So changing this over, first, we've got the facts of that. But then the other facts of that too are if you have to change over, hopefully there is some wiggle room for you in terms of where you are with your dose. And that hopefully you're not on MOUNJARO 15 milligrams where this person particularly is. There is nowhere titrated up to in terms of the marketplace right now. The beautiful part, and if you click like and subscribe, you can see in my playlist and in my free encouragement group, countessofshopping.com/group. The Count just posted an article of articles, plural, in the news section on the left side of the group. There's a news section that the Count manages. He just posted a whole bunch of articles, and I've done a whole bunch of shows here on YouTube, so whichever way you like to consume content, about upcoming drugs in the pipeline that are higher than MOUNJARO in terms of results. You just may require, and it sounds like it, a higher dose, like me. I simply my body requires more GLP-1, more Tirzepatide, GLP-1 and GIP than other people, relatively speak, like if we're comparing to other people. But for me, I need a higher dose. I'm at the highest dose there is. There's nowhere higher in the market for brand name to go. Zepbound 15 milligrams and MOUNJARO 15 milligrams. That is the highest dose. Capped. Hit that ceiling, baby. And so it is frustrating. I want to say 100% it's frustrating for T. In addition, side effects could be different if you're switching from MOUNJARO to Ozempic or Tirzepatide to semaglutide. Side effects could be different too, which is probably also why this healthcare provider didn't bounce her all the way up to the highest 2.4 milligrams, is concerns about side effects. Diarrhea, constipation, nausea, vomiting. There's 4 of them. It can switch, I like how it can switch for different doses, from my experience, strength and hope. It can switch, I'm sure, switching medications too, of how your body's going to react with that as well. Number 4, this part I thought, this is where I think it's so beautiful and amazing, but also I wanted to mention, because I think it's an important piece to be mentioning, that in the messages is saying, I know I should exercise, so maybe that's my problem. First and foremost, let's change the vernacular on that. Like the way that we speak and the way that we're talking to ourselves and our mindset is, in my experience, strength and hope, super important. And breaking and chopping off old ways that I talk to myself, super important. So 1, I know I should exercise, and maybe that's my problem. Let's not should all over ourselves. Like, let's not should all over ourselves. So let's eliminate that out of the gate in terms of the conversation. And very well, this person, T, may very well just been typing quickly and it was just it just came out, right? But this is where I want to encourage you for number 3 of check yourself before you wreck yourself, of checking what we are saying to ourselves as we are evolving along this health and wellness journey. Like, I say to myself now, like, I just lift, it's part of my routine. It's who I am. It is part of my routine, right? Like, talking to myself about this, that I don't not lift. I don't not walk 10,000 steps a day. It is simply who I am as a human being because I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm fit. And so I know I should exercise, so maybe that's my problem. So there's clearly a challenge for her, but I want to encourage you, instead of saying problem, to say challenge. It sounds so minor, but literally these changes help with the mind effery that can happen with the weight loss journey. Of that it's a challenge that you're going to be able to solve. You will solve this challenge. You will. I believe that you will. And if you don't believe yourself, then lean into my belief. I believe that. Um, that maybe that's my challenge as opposed to saying my problem. And I've said too, by the way, this is like me continuing to work. I keep looking down for my mic, by the way. The count needs to, you guys have said something about the mic. And so I'm like super hyper cognizant of like checking. So I'm not just staring at my cleavage. trying to check my mic. Trying to check my mic. Okay, so did we talk about the side effects? Side effects are different. That's the other one. Next. Okay, so the language, that was number 4, was the language of this. That I think holding ourselves accountable 100%, like 100% in agreement, but also acknowledging that the medication helps us with the heavy lifting too. I'm experiencing this right now myself, which is why I can speak so much on it, of being at the highest dose, MOUNJARO 15 milligrams, Zepbound 15 milligrams. Having the highest dose, and if it's having weight gain and things like that, for my non-medical standpoint, that it's a higher dose would help with that, particularly since the T's been on for over 2 years and 9 months with GLP-1 medication for MOUNJARO. And so, same, 2.5 years, like same, that there is a higher dose component on that I don't think we're talking about enough in the GLP-1 community. And it's not that the medication is not working, because it is. It is. As you can see by this, like you can see she was eating everything in sight by making that switch because it was a lower amount. Clearly she needed the higher amount. And so making that switch, the medication is helping. It's just not the same. And I don't like to use just because that's a diminishing word. It's not, my body has gotten acclimated. And that's why I need a higher dose. And there's a percentage, and there's not data on this yet. This is the other thing, because we're in such this beginning, there's not enough data of how many people have continued, by the way. Do you know how many people in the first year quit taking GLP-1s? It's 50 to 70%, which is why I like shout from the bell tops of, oh my gosh, 70% of people gain the weight back after hopping off GLP-1. So being on continuously for over 2+ years, the taking of the break part 2, I'm very interested in this in terms of like going back to that, because I know so many people are going to comment on that component of it. I do think that is interesting, but I also think that the medication, we need to do our part. And she's saying that too about pushing more water and protein and working and exercise, of course, of course. But also GLP-1 helps with that heavy lifting. And if it's not heavy lifting, that is also something that we can't, for me, I couldn't outrun, I couldn't outwater, and I couldn't what was the other third thing that she said? Protein. I was on all of these things, and then it did not work like as a long-term sustainable solution. For me, that's why the medication is taking the heavy lifting from this. And so that's number 4. And then number 5, of going back over to a protein focus. Protein does help us build that muscle. So if we're lifting, it's going to help aid in that with muscle building. And muscle helps us burn fat and things like that more. It's more helpful for our metabolism by having that muscle. I'm butchering that in the non-scientific way, but basically that's it. And the other thing with protein is that it helps fill up. I dramatically feel differently when I have protein, higher amount of protein, than when I don't. I eat substantially less. I've done it both ways, and it makes a big difference for me when I have more protein, particularly when the GLP-1 is doing the heavier lifting for me. Like on day 2 and day 3, I can still feel it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really full when I have that plus protein. And so to give some context on that, are you able to, because things that we can change and things we cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. The serenity prayer, for sure. That there's the wisdom in knowing of what you can do, but also what you can't do with this. And that some of this, it sounds like for T, she may just need a higher dose of it. And it's going to take longer being a type 2 diabetic. And that knowing now that Tirzepatide worked better for her. And so giving this time, particularly people who are getting forced on their insurance right now to switch from MOUNJARO to Ozempic or Zepbound to Wegovy. Frustrating when you know that it's not your aiding in your benefit with it, but you're powerless over the healthcare insurances of what they're saying that is approved for medication. And so things we can do is we can focus in on protein goals and things like that. And if you guys want next week's challenge in the free group to be on protein or to be on food tracking or calories or whatever, that can, if you want it to be next week's challenge in the group to be food focused, let me know in the comments. And in the group too, of course. But protein focus is something I do have control over, which is why I like to focus in on it. And same thing with the water, of course, like staying hydrated and things like that and working out. But also, GLP-1 should be helping with the heavy lifting. And for me, my problems, I think, would be absolved. So not that I have problems, but I'm still not exactly at my, again, I'm not looking at my cleavage. I'm just trying to make sure that the mic keeps moving down there. Don't mind me. Don't mind behind the curtain. I'll just hold my hands like this. So all that to say, it's challenging. And to reiterate, making that switch from Mounjaro to Ozempic or Mounjaro to semaglutide or Tirzepatide to semaglutide, it's harder. And the data doesn't support that that you'll lose more weight, that you actually lose less weight. But some people do have different reactions on them as well. And some people have said that they've switched and that they've had really, really good reactions. Like me, not reactions, but really, really good results from it. So I would question doing that, particularly having been on Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and Zepbound, not at the same time, but at different times because of the shortage. So shortages, plural. I hope that helps. I hope this whole video helps steer somewhat. Maybe there's a nugget, take what you want and leave the rest. And that's my other part of this too, of people who are like, oh my gosh, how dare you tell me to stop taking this medication or not to do that. Take what you want and leave the rest. Take what you want and leave the rest. I'm going to continue to research that data standpoint on that. I will continue to do my due diligence on that. I welcome scientific and based references that are science-based. I welcome that, that are science-based. Not just, oh, Susie on TikTok. I just made up Susie. I'm not saying that to anybody on TikTok, but so-and-so said, like, no, let's have like an actual like conversation on that. So my beautiful friends, I love you guys so super much. I hope that's helpful. Our emoji of the day. My hot husband just texted me and that made me laugh. Our emoji of the day is going to be a gold star because you are a superstar. That's who you are. And I do emojis of the day to get to know you better because I care. And emojis of the day are my bat signal to pray over you. And if you don't believe in prayer, uplift you in positive thought. And the repetition of seeing your name over and over and over and over and over helps me to get to know you better because I really do care. That's why I do a daily show. I enjoy our community so very much. Makes my day interacting with y'all. I love it. And our accountability question, what are you doing today to move you closer to your goals? If you've not signed up for the free encouragement group, go to countessofshopping.com/group, GRUP. Get in that group. It's not on Facebook. Many of the GLP-1 Facebook groups were eliminated. Mine never came back. Apparently some did. We had over 19,000 people in that group. It burns my grits, which is why I'm like, toodles, meta, doses. I'll be on Countess of Shopping Instagram, but I will not. It will be very cold when I go, if I have to go back to Facebook. I would prefer not to. So that's why this other group is something that the Count and I have built, and it's on the platform called Circles, if that's helpful. So I love you guys. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I'm Countess of Shopping, count my blessings because life is delicious. And let me know if you have further questions too. Hopefully I can be of maximum service with my videos so you can talk to your healthcare provider about further dialogue on this as well, because it is not medical advice, simply my experience, strength, and hope. Love you guys so super much. I'll see you tomorrow.